And then we have the lily pads. That was kind of an easy one to print. There were only 4. And then the dragonflies. We printed that. I think this was 6 colors. So each one of the colors is a separate screen. Then we printed white. And that's where this print is at now. See, each one of the layers. You guys are going to print the last layer that goes in between the white areas. And so you guys are printing these little areas that fit inside the white. So if I were to turn off all of these other colors, you can see what you're printing. So you guys will be printing that, which is the final piece, and it goes over the white areas. Just a little, you can see it on the screen here. Screen printing is like a stencil. This is photosensitive emulsion. We have a dark room that we coat this in. We have bubble lights, and so we can see what we're doing, but it doesn't expose the emulsion. So we coat this on the screen, and I print the film, which I'll bring so you guys can see the film, and then we expose it. So you get these openings. This area is closed, so ink doesn't go through it. This area is open, so ink will go through that. So it's like making a stencil. You can do this digitally, or you can hand draw elements to block out areas too. So we already what we did before we started, we pre-mixed all of our inks. So we already had our inks already mixed. That was like an all-day process. We had to try to match the colors that were on the images. So that was a little daunting because we had so much ink, really messy kind of. I'm not a very clean person, so it was really messy for me. But we finally got all the inks mixed, and then we started printing. Today we're mixing, this is called Honeybee. We're going to be using this color for these images here. So what I do first, or what you guys are going to do, instead of, with a lot of these images, we used to pick squeegee. This is a little hard to use because it's so big, it's hard to control. But for the most part, we would just print, put the ink down, and then print. But since this is a little tricky to use and it takes a bit of time getting used to the big one, we're going to use the small one. So we can print each element separately. So hopefully you guys will be able to print each element at one time. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pour out my inks. And I'm just going to pour a little bit. Typically I pour it at the top. But since we're using a small squeegee, I'm just going to pour a little bit above each element. And as the ink gets used, I put down more. So I might be able to get both of these with one ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to print on, it's called Duralar. It's like a clear plastic. I'm going to print on that first so I can see through that when I line up my print. And you guys will see that in a minute when I do that. So I always want to put the ink, the lid back on so it doesn't dry. The first thing you're going to do is flood coat. Flood coating just covers the opening. So I'm going to take a little bit of ink and I'm going to cover that opening. So there's ink already filled. So I usually do it 2 times. I pull it over the image and then I pull it back. Now I'm ready to print. So I'm going to make sure that.
Can everyone see from where you're at if you need to stand or bring a chair closer? you know, you want to stay socially distanced, obviously.
So I'm going to print this on this plastic. And this is how you register. This is how we register the prints. It's called flop registration because this flops off over the edge. So this is how you line everything up. So what I'm going to do is and I'm just going over these. And I use this little clamp here to hold my squeegee. So now you guys can see it's on the Duralar. So let me see if this will hold up. See, it's on the Duralar. Now, all I have to do is take my print. Now, if you notice now, I can move this around underneath to line it up where it needs to go. So once I get that lined up, this one's pretty easy. Some of them can be a bit tricky because you have to make sure everything is lined up perfectly. So now you can see all of these are underneath. All the elements are lined up. Now I have tape. This tape is 3 thick, so I just put a piece of tape on a piece of tape on top of a piece of tape. So it's a little bit thick. So what I can do now is I can put one here, one here, and I'll put one on the bottom. Now, since I know where this is lined up at, I can pull this off. So this is going to make it a lot easier. I don't have to do flop registration each time. I just line it up. Since that tape is thicker, the paper floods up against the edge. You just want to make sure that it's perfectly even.
Screen printing, the actual printing is really fast, but the setup takes some time.
Yeah, once you get it set up, you're okay. You can just start printing away. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to switch the squeegees here. This one was the one that I was using here is a little flexible, and it's kind of weird using it. So I'm going to set this over here. I'm going to use this one. So now I'm just going to take, and you want a flood coat. And flood coating is just covering it and then pulling it back, covering it. I usually do it 2 times. And then I just gather up a little bit of ink. You can see how quickly it's going once you set everything up.
You really only have to do a lot of that setup once, and then you can make several prints.
So now you can see where I put the images inside the areas here. So that's what you guys will be printing. Now, this is water-based ink. It's like acrylic ink. It dries like in 15, 20 minutes. So as we're printing, we're just going to put these in the rack so they don't touch one another. And that is, now this one's complete now. So
is that the last layer on that design?
That's the last layer that's on this.
Yeah. You guys are going to help finish off some prints.
So I take it one person is coming up at a time?
Yeah, I might take a couple, like 1 or 2 people at a time, and then they can kind of like both watch and share the joy.
You want to push down on the screen the screen is slightly raised above the board. So I can push this down and I can for the board. So when you pull the squeegee, you're going to pull it down all the way. You want to apply a little bit of pressure. You want to tilt it like it's about 60 degrees and then pull it down. And that's basically it. So there's really no way to make a mistake. If it doesn't go through, we just print it again. So don't feel like it's a huge, huge undertaking to do it. It's fairly easy. So especially with a small squeegee. So I take the next one. Now this time, I can line this up with the tape, but I want to make sure though, I want to be doubly sure that it's going to line up. So I will line it up on the tape registration. Then I'll just flop this over again to make sure everything's still lined up. And it is. So I can flip this back. I can put the screen down. You guys can print.
Okay. Cool. All right. So here's what we'll do the remainder of the class. Those of you who are finishing up the project from last week, the Choose Your Own Adventure one, you can work on that. You can work on Inktober. And then I'm going to just have like 1 or 2 people come up at a time, and everyone's going to get a chance to pull a couple of the shapes so that you can get the feel for screen printing, because we will be doing this later on in the year when we can coordinate something with NKU. Okay, I'm going to stop this.